Mr. Paisley, we are live for the final episode for now of the, regular season conference championship recap, PB episode number 17. We started all the way back in August. We made it through the regular season and conference championship week. We're going to have another one also coming up right after the first round of the playoffs, so about 2 weeks or so from now to recap those games. But yeah, Mr. Paisley, how are we feeling after the championship week?
Feeling good. A little very sad coming to the end here, but we finally got a bracket. A lot of projections. We were highlighting it each week the last couple of weeks, and we finally got a concrete bracket with some teams getting some nice draws, some teams getting some bad draws, and we'll definitely dive into all that later. But yeah, it was a fun weekend, good games towards the end. A lot of blowouts, actually, if you include the group of five conference championships. So interesting week, but honestly, had a pretty good day on the page for both of us, Case.
Yeah, we did. A rare sight to see us both above 50% on the season or on the week. At any point, finished 5-4. I finished at 4-2 this past week. We got the locks, which was very nice. But more importantly, Jared, I have a note here. We got our parlay finally once again with getting the walk-off field goal there for Clemson for you. And then I hung on with Georgia in an overtime. Both of those could have went the other way, but we'd rather be lucky than good sometimes. We finally hit one, took pretty much all year. It was, I think, only our second one all season, which isn't great. But they are underdogs. It is more difficult, obviously, to get both correct. So at plus 379, we did get Georgia and Clemson.
Yeah, finally hit that one. I think the first one we hit was week 2 or 3. I think we have to check the stats. So yeah. Little dry spell there, but very close to 101. So it was nice to, if you've been sticking with the parlay, we finally got one here to end the year at some nice odds at around plus 400, honestly. So yeah, got a little lucky. We'll get into some of those recaps, but you're right, better to be lucky than good sometimes for sure.
And to finish the regular season too at 201 wins on the page, 198 losses and 8 pushes gets us just a nod above 50%. So I'll take it. First year kind of doing this the full thing. I know we keep records in the past, but just to have it week in and week out keeping track. We've kind of been hovering around 50% pretty much all year, but it was good at least to stay above and not slip down in the 48s or 49s in the last couple weeks. And it's definitely this conference championship week really helped us to stay above 500 going 9-6 on a page as the page this week.
Yeah, I think it's important just to keep that same process week in, week out. It definitely was a grind this year. Definitely could have been a lot better, but it's kind of how some years go. But was proud to be a little bit above 50%. We're very transparent here on this page. We post the results. We give out free picks. So we're not lying to you guys with what we're posting out there, not swaying the information. But, we'll take 50% for the year and hopefully improve that next year for sure.
Absolutely. And just to get back right into the recap, we'll recap the games from this week, just some of the major games. I think I just have the Power 4 games that we'll go over, and then we'll discuss a little bit of our preseason picks from week 0, which are interesting to look at. The teams that we thought were going to win, surprise teams, disappointing teams. To say the least, we did not do too well with that segment 17 weeks ago. But no, it'll be fun. And then we got the college football breakdown at the end, a little Army-Navy coming up next week. So we do have a game this Saturday. It is Army-Navy and then the Heisman Trophy. So that'll be a good Saturday football. But yeah, we'll just start off early in the day. Arizona State blowing out Iowa State to win the Big 12. We talked about it in weeks past, but Arizona State, pretty good story. Picked to finish last in the conference and really played well the last few weeks. That running back Scadaboo is really good. He's fun to watch and get a blowout win over Iowa State. This was one of them that I had that I bet at least Arizona State -2, getting just a blowout win and getting a college football playoff spot locked up. And not only that, but because of what happened in the ACC championship, Arizona State ends up with the bye. So what a remarkable season. And say what you want about the format of the playoff right now, we could get into that later, but huge win for Arizona State, Big 12, and they're still alive and have a chance to potentially win a championship.
Yeah, I mean, got to give a lot of credit to Arizona State for what they did. Just kept overcoming all the doubters and all the people that just kept saying it's fraudulent and stuff. And I think we highlighted Scatabo in one of the games. I think it might have been the BYU game or maybe one before. And I mean, now he's hitting the scene and everyone's falling in love with him. So it's good to identify some of those key players early and know who they are. But he's a bowling ball, like we said. I mean, he's hard to get down. He's a great runner. And they just leaned on him in that first half, and Iowa State had no answer all game. So I took the over in this one. You had Arizona State, so it was definitely a good start with Arizona State putting up a ton of points. I did not see a blowout coming, as it was right around to pick them. So got to give Arizona State a lot of credit. And I mean, some of these teams, like, they're definitely going to be underdogs, but it's kind of like March Madness that we'll get into with how hot you are, what you're playing your best ball at the right time. Ohio State maybe a team that's not playing their best ball. Arizona State definitely just riding a lot of momentum here. So I think some of these spreads will be a little larger, especially in round one, and then maybe in round two as well with some of these buys like Arizona State and Boise State get. But I'm very interested to see how these underdogs play because I wouldn't, with the way college football kind of went this year, I feel like it's not that huge margins you're seeing from the top to the middle. I think they're actually pretty close. So week one will be a nice indication to see what goes on here with the college football playoff. But a lot of credit to Arizona State and what they're doing. That head coach, a lot of praise for him.
Yeah, no, it's cool to see, and like you said, it will be interesting to see what type of performance we get out of these teams in the playoff. In years past, it seemed that there was always those 2 or 3 really elite teams, and this year, as we know, I mean, there's really just not. It seems like a lot of teams could beat anybody, and we'll get into Texas here in a second, but them falling again to Georgia, so just completely wide open. And Arizona State will get, I guess, the winner of the Texas and Clemson game. So that will be a huge test. So, yeah, Georgia hanging on, getting another overtime win over Texas, 22-19. They blew them out the first time. This one was definitely a little bit more, scrappy of a game to watch. Not a ton of great offense. Georgia's quarterback goes down in this game. Felt like Texas had chances to pull away or kind of separate themselves. They were never able to do it. And, Georgia hangs on. They knock off Texas after that scare with Georgia Tech just a couple of weeks ago. And all of a sudden they're now number 2 again. They're SEC champions again. And, they have a shot, obviously, to win it again. They're going to have to overcome their quarterback problems. I'm assuming Beck will be out indefinitely from what at least sounds like. So disappointing for him. But nonetheless, Texas fails to win the SEC. They seemed like they were kind of on pace to do so, but Georgia finds a way to get there. It wasn't easy, and to hang on, and they win a low-scoring game in Atlanta.
Yeah, Texas just couldn't put that final nail in the coffin, especially in the first half, to really extend that lead. Kind of similar to the Texas A&M game on the Saturday of Thanksgiving. Like, Texas should have been up a lot more, and then it almost bit them in the end where Texas A&M almost came back. Now this time UGA does and gets to tie it up late, takes it into overtime. And once that game went into overtime, Georgia just had the momentum, got that stop, had a good 3 downs to come out of the first overtime, force a field goal. So, Quinn Ewers too. I don't know if he's still battling that high ankle sprain or what, but he just doesn't look the same. The offense doesn't look as explosive as it did last year. You're seeing Xavier Worthy for the Chiefs like flying all over the place. They just don't have that type of weapon on the outside. The run game can't really get going. Their offensive line is good and better in pass protection than run. So Texas is an interesting team and kind of getting led by their defense is why I like the under in this one. You like Georgia, and again, both right on both sides there. But Texas defense definitely showed up early. They were doing their job, but Texas just couldn't extend, settled for a couple field goals, and I think it was 6-3 going into halftime. So just felt like Texas should have been up more, and then in this game it did come back to bite them. So real close one, but like you said, Georgia now has some QB uncertainty going forward with the backup coming in. He did well. It's tough when you don't prepare for that type of quarterback. He was a little more mobile, using his legs a little bit. So it did give him a nice little spark. So that'll be something. Georgia gets the bye, but like you said, I think they're not as elite as they were in past years. Now they have a backup quarterback, most likely going to play. We'll keep an eye on that. But I think any of these top-tier teams are not without any blemishes, so I think they could get upset. But it was just like old times, Georgia winning the SEC once again.
Yeah, just when it felt like it was finally coming to an end, they find a way to get back in the spotlight and steal it right from Texas. And we kind of talked about it a little bit right before we started the the podcast was, it's crazy. You know, we're still 16 weeks through, 15 weeks, whatever it is. And we don't really, I mean, at least I don't feel like I even know exactly how good Texas is, because the tests that they've had, they've kind of failed. And there are multiple teams like this. It's not just Texas, but, you know, just looking at their schedule, their best win is definitely at A&M, and that just came, you know, 2 weeks ago. But once again, you know, A&M now is a respectable team. I think they're a good team, but, you know, they're 8-4. They lost all their tough games as well. It was a low-scoring game with Texas. They only were able to put up 17 points. They had a close one with Vanderbilt. They lost to Georgia both times they had them. And other than that A&M win, their best win is Michigan. And we all know that, you know, what type of season Michigan had. So I don't know. It's like, I believe Texas could obviously win the national championship. I think they're good enough, and especially because of this wide open year. But I still don't know. You know, I do think they are beatable. Like, I think I think they'll beat Clemson, but I don't know. I'm not going to be absolutely stunned here if I don't know, somehow Clemson pulls off a major upset, just because I'm still a little bit unsure on what type of team Texas is.
Yeah, no, I think, did they peak after Michigan week 2? Because that, when you watch that game against Michigan, they were humming. The offense was moving the ball at will. The offensive line was dominating. And ever since then, just really couldn't get it done. And I watched that whole Arkansas game, and I was just really shocked at how troubling they were able to move the ball, with Arkansas being so bad in the secondary just weeks before to Ole Miss that put up like 62. So just really interesting. And then, like, their 2 tests with Georgia, I think Georgia really laid out the game plan 2 weeks back to back, not back to back, but during the year. This is how you beat Texas, and now our team's going to get film on that, try and replicate that game plan a little bit. So, yeah, wouldn't you be feeling great if I was a Longhorn fan or a Matthew McConaughey out there? So he's probably not feeling great out there, but it's good that they're in the playoff. Defense is really good, but yeah, I'm with you, Case. I don't really trust any of these teams really at the top.
And yeah, so Texas will have to go play Clemson, so we'll get right into them. They battle back. They win the ACC 34-31 a game. They had to come back in this one and, you know, found a way to win. I didn't see a ton of this game just because it was going on at the same time as the Penn State game in Indy, but a huge win for Clemson. Just when it seems like, once again, everybody kind of wrote them off in the early parts of the season, just when people were kind of talking about Georgia, they kind of quietly, and we actually did highlight it in like week 7 or week 8. I remember talking like, nobody's really talking about Clemson. They're kind of sitting there 3rd and 4th in the ACC. They're behind, you know, SMU. They're behind Miami. And I think at the time they were like tied with Pittsburgh, maybe, because remember Pittsburgh had that, you know, really fast 6 or 7-0 start. But Clemson was just kind of hovering. Remember, they got blown out week 1 against Georgia, but once again, they found a way to keep winning. They backdoored their way into the ACC, thanks to Miami, which, you know, was the most predictable thing in the world, that Miami would fail to win the ACC. And once again, the Clemson Tigers are back in the ACC, and they get the win over, you know, a year that they probably didn't deserve it by, you know, they earned it, but I'm not sure they were the best team in that conference. It was kind of wide open. But yeah, they come back and against a high-powered SMU, you know, offensive team, and able to steal a win there. And, you know, once again, Dabo, similar to Georgia, just wins the ACC like nothing happened.
Yeah, this one was impressive for Dabo. Usually his teams are stacked and they're winning the ACC championship by 3-4 scores. So this one was really impressive to stay the course. Didn't make any huge changes. Quarterback got a lot better throughout the year. Klubnik still playing good, but not like as elite as he was in the middle of the season when their schedule was down a little bit. But like we highlighted, they have some good receivers I thought would give SMU some trouble. They have a nice back in Maffa, who's another bowling ball, not as good as Scatabo, but definitely could truck his way for a couple extra yards. And I just think their defense is going to be the key going forward here, especially in this Texas game, or if they could get past that, because if their defense could play up to standards, I think this offense could, through the air, could put up some points. I think it's a tough matchup against Texas. I wish Clemson would have got matched up against somebody else, but I still think they should be able to compete. But SMU really showed well in the second half. I mean, Clemson got out to that big lead. They were up 17-0. Had it on the side TV watching the Penn State game, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be easy. Like, it's over. And the next thing I know, I look up, it's third quarter, it's 17-14 or 21, or it was like 21-14. It was getting a little closer. And then SMU really battled back from being down 3 scores. So they showed a lot of fight, and they did a good job stopping the run against Clemson. So that'll be an area to look forward for Penn State fans if It's a lot of success against Oregon, but SMU did a good job in that game and all year stopping the run. I think their defense is a little bit better than people think. Just that offense just got to get going a little bit. It was a little underwhelming, especially to start. This game just got in a big hole, but SMU tied it up late. They scored, I think it was like 30 seconds left or something, and I thought they should have went for one or go for two. You're in that spot. You're big underdogs. And if you don't get it, and you'll probably still get in the playoff because you're only going to lose by one. And then they still ended up getting in either way going into overtime. Right. They kicked the extra point, and they get a big return, Clemson, on the kickback. And then they had one chunk play of 20 yards that set up a 54-yarder, which was a bomb from the from the Clemson kicker. Literally happened right after the Penn State game kind of went final. So just flipped my head right over, hit the field goal. I was very excited to see Clemson sneak out that one, but it was definitely a kind of tale of two halves. Good showing from SMU, but Clemson with a nice win there to get the ACC as slight underdogs, which we thought was a little weird, and they got the outright win, which was nice for us.
Yeah, no, late surge by SMU to almost get back and beat in Clemson, but yeah, huge opportunity for SMU. They fall just short on going to the ACC and winning it, but like you said, they're still in the playoff. I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but SMU isn't taking any money. Well, they can't. They're not getting any money from the ACC. It was a part of their deal with TV rights, and I think it's the first few years, so it's going to still be a little while for SMU. But doesn't matter. They get in the playoff. They're able to unlock some extra funds there, and we'll see if that helps them. But I mean, certainly got to be. You're not probably thrilled if you're an SMU fan just because you thought you had a real chance of winning this ACC championship first year there. But still, I mean, to accomplish, I don't think many people had SMU in the college football playoff at the beginning of the year. So still a huge accomplishment. They still have an opportunity to go to state college. And, who knows? I mean, like we were saying before the show, really anything could happen there. We'll see how they kind of respond from that Clemson loss. But, yeah, Oregon offensive surging past Penn State 45-37. Penn State will now have to play SMU. They don't get the bye. And we were kind of talking about this game too a little bit, Jared, before the show. My biggest thing was, I was impressed with the Penn State offense. Obviously, I was a little worried going into it of that Oregon offense. Turned out to be right. The Penn State defense just could not really get a stop. They got a couple, literally, I could think of all of them, which is not a good thing, when you're trying to win games that I could probably name the 3 or 4 stops they had all game. But yeah, they got in that hole early, 28-10. And just kind of from there, it was just, they were able to get back in the game, which was great, but they were just failed to get that stop and tie it up or take the lead at any point. We're not able to do that, but offense looked good, better than I thought it would. I mean, really, I did not expect it to put up, 337 points and like almost 300 yards rushing. And Aller looked really good outside of a few mistakes, but overall, I thought he looked really well. So, pretty happy, and we'll get into the playoff, and I like their path. So, I mean, there's definitely pros to all this, but disappointed in the result. But I mean, I think Oregon's probably the best offensive team as a whole in the country. We'll see if that defense could get them to a national championship that we were talking about. That's their concern because I did not see Penn State being able to move the ball as consistently as they did against, pretty talented Oregon team. So, got to have some concern there if you're an Oregon fan, but overall, I think you have to be pretty happy still just based on your offense.
Yeah, I think I took away a lot from this game, really learned a lot about both teams, some surprising and then some just kind of reaffirming my opinion on these teams. And one, like you said, was the Oregon offense. I think it's really elite. They're super fast. They spread you out. They have a good running back in Jordan James. The offensive line's really good in pass protection. Dillon Gabriel, I think, is really underrated too. Probably going to finish second or third probably in the Heisman race. So nothing to, that's a pretty good accomplishment. And I think he does a really good job distributing it. That Tez Johnson really had a great game. I think he's an underrated receiver too. They're kind of just like waiting to pop up. I mean, they didn't really have any like big time games, I feel like, since the Ohio State game. And then this was kind of their, next big game. And they play late at night sometimes. So like a lot of people really weren't watching them maybe, and then you got to look on the flip side with Oregon's defense. I mean, God, they couldn't stop the run at all. And Penn State did a great job committing to it, staying to the run even when they were down. That kind of opened up the passing game. I thought Kolnicki called a pretty good game for Penn State there. Ilara looked really good in the pocket, moving around a little bit. So I would just be a little concerned if I was Oregon, definitely going into depending on the matchup. So it's all going to be matchup dependent. I feel like once we get into these round by round. So I think if they face an explosive offense, could be troubling. If they face a non-explosive offense, then I think their offense could go up against anybody. But if their defense, I think they really need a nice matchup with an offense that isn't that great or it can't really run the ball, because now that's Genty, this is Penn State, and then there's one other team I can't think of that just ran all over Oregon. So it's going to be tough to win games by margin or to, have an easy path if you're not really stopping the run. That's usually a very important part of football if you're on the defensive side. And then, yeah, on the Penn State side, the offense looked really good. Like I said, just got to commit to that run game. The receivers definitely showed well with that run game rolling there. And then, but the Penn State defense, I think, got to take a step away from that. I think with the Big Ten, just in general, I feel like, especially in years past, but not as much this year, but the offenses just aren't that good. So you play a ton of teams, you look good, maybe the stats look good, but then you face a team like Oregon or like let's just say Oregon in this example, that's way quicker, way faster, way more, up tempo than what you're used to facing. So that's kind of why I liked Oregon in the game. I thought their defense would show a little bit better, but Penn State really impressed me there. But just something to keep in mind that it's going to be matchup dependent. Is SMU as quick and as talented as Oregon on offense? No. So they're not going to face anything like that in the first round. So we'll see what happens with Penn State, but I think that secondary really got exposed there. So going to be interesting for Penn State. Don't want to get matched up with a team that can maybe air it out. So just little takeaways you could, see. Right. We're not going to know these matchups week by week until, we get through week one and stuff. So, you could think, oh, we're going to play this team next. But that's kind of how March Madness works. And then the big upset happens and you're playing a completely different team. So it's going to be week by week matchups. So just something I took away from Oregon and Penn State just to watch out for depending on who they get matched up with.
Yeah. And I think Gabriel too was definitely the difference maker in this game, just being able to get the ball out that quickly. And I think that was part of, why, the pass rush wasn't quite there for Penn State like it was in all the other games. And yeah, credit to Oregon's offensive line for sure, but there was a ton of close, pressure where you're right there, you're a step out, you're a split second short. And really it was just Gabriel getting the ball out. I think that split second quicker than most other teams do on offense that Penn State's faced. So I think that was an issue, but it's more of just credit, I think, to Gabriel and what he was able to do. I mean, they just have receivers. They weren't, taking deep shots left and right. This was, underneath 6 yards, catch, run after catch, huge play, broken tackle, run after catch, big play. It was like one after another, just 10-yard quick gain, 12-yard. They just kind of made it look easy going down the field. And yeah, it starts with the pass rush, but I think it just was credit to Oregon's, line and, more so just Gabriel being able to split second balls out. I mean, it was definitely there's no doubt that I feel very confident that Oregon would get through Ohio State again for just based on where both of those teams are now. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's definitely, like we said, I think Oregon's beatable. I think everybody's beatable. But yeah, impressed with Gabriel and we'll see if they could finish it out. But definitely, good for them going first year in the Big Ten and being able to win that conference in year one.
Yeah, I think also another factor you're saying that getting out quick. If you watch that game back, the RPO game of both quarterbacks I thought was really elite. That run pass option, they were making the right reads, either handing it off or throwing a quick slant. I feel like both quarterbacks were just executing that at a very high level. That really could throw defense off because they're kind of sitting, do I attack the run? Do I sit back and play the pass? And when they were pulling that and ripping it to those receivers, it was getting some huge junk yards. So just something to keep in mind too. Maybe some teams will look at that on film, and not every team has a lot of RPOs maybe, or some teams do. So that's just something to also keep in mind, because it looked like some of the Oregon and Penn State defense were really lost with that RPO game that those were putting off there.
Yeah, we'll see if any of the other teams that like an SMU or whoever Oregon places in round one will look at any of that film and see what they struggle with in these games. Because that's, another cost of having to play that extra game is, obviously you could risk losing, but you're also putting more out there in a game that you want to win, and your opponents are just kind of sitting at home. I mean, SMU wasn't, but, other teams like Ohio State and, there is definitely some benefit of not playing. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I remember being very content with Penn State not having to play the Big Ten championship before Ohio State lost to Michigan, just because I didn't really care. They had an extra week off. They were going to play. I mean, here they are. They have to play at home anyway. It was the same thing. So they did have to play that extra week, and we'll see. Definitely, it was worth it. It was nice to be there and have a chance to win, but we'll see what that looks like and see if there's any signs week 1 in the playoffs of any of those teams that had to play, or just how they look, and we could talk about that next year. But it was good experience.
Yeah. I think for Penn State, just quickly too, I think that might have helped them with the way the bracket broke out. But again, sometimes your path looks really good and you have an upset, and sometimes it's like, oh my God, this is so hard. And then kind of like UConn and March Madness, I'm bringing up March Madness a lot, just watching a lot of college basketball. But remember, we talked about that with UConn, how they got in that bracket with Iowa State, Auburn, a couple other big time teams, and they won every game. So I could feel like Oregon, if they are that elite, doesn't really matter who you play. You're just going to beat them. Sometimes if your path looks tough, if you're that good, it doesn't really matter. And other times, if it looks soft, you got to just take it week by week and win one game at a time. Yeah,
no, exactly. So now that was just a recap of what we just saw this past week. Instead of winners and losers this week, I know everybody's probably disappointed. We don't have a favorite segment today, but Paisley and I did have these week 0 predictions. We went through each of the Power 4 conferences, picked the title game, a surprise team, a disappointing team, and a champion. And obviously, I'm not going to waste 20 minutes on this, but rated them 0 to 10. I have the document. I don't have it on the screen, but Paisley had Big Ten Ohio State over Oregon. I as well had Ohio State over Oregon, giving us a 4 out of 10 there. We're close on it. Probably should have happened. Definitely should have happened, actually. But not quite given the 5 or 6, just because we both had Ohio State, and not only did they not make it, they lost. If we had Oregon, obviously it would have been more points there, but close call there for us both. Paisley, you hit a home run here on your surprise team, and I can't believe I'm looking at this document. This must have been changed, because I don't know how I didn't have Indiana as my surprise team, but great call there. College football playoff, 10 out of 10 is what your rating is there. My surprise is 2 out of 10, not very good. Maybe surprisingly bad, but I had Nebraska and USC. USC looked like a surprise team week 3, so I'm just going to throw that out there. If we were giving out quarterly awards, I think USC and Nebraska both would have won first quarter surprise team. And then Big Ten, I'll do one more. We'll switch it to you then, we'll do all 4 conferences. But disappointing team, also Paisley, pretty good here. 9 out of 10. You had Wisconsin and Michigan. Wisconsin was under their win total, which you also took week 0. I think their under was 7 wins. They end up finishing 5-7, so pretty solidly under. And you also had Michigan, so pretty disappointing. Did not give the 10 out of 10 because Michigan did beat Ohio State, so we got to deduct a point there. 9 out of 10 there. And my disappointing team, which was okay, was Washington. 5 out of 10. I mean, they certainly were a disappointment. Didn't have extreme high expectations, but certainly, didn't wow anybody. So yeah, that's the Big Ten, Paisley. Not sure if you have a document, but any thoughts on that and what you saw went well and what we went wrong here?
Yeah, I just pulled it up myself here. Surprise team Indiana. I'll take full credit for that one. Didn't think they were going to be that good and make their way into the playoff, but the Ohio State over Oregon case, we had that perfect with Ohio State losing during the season. Could have got the revenge if they would have just won outright as 21-point favorites against Michigan. Ohio State kind of ruining a lot of stuff here in the preseason predictions here. What else we got? Yeah, Michigan obviously didn't. If we would have just got that one more loss at the end of the year, could have been a 10 out of 10. Would love my 10 out of 10s. Nebraska looked really good after Colorado, and then kind of went downhill. And USC, same thing, kind of week 1 champion over LSU. Thought everything was going to be great, and then just kept losing those 1-score games, having the lead in the 4th quarter. That was disappointing. And now Miller Moss transferring, Lincoln Riley to UCF, but that didn't go through. Rumors going on, so little dysfunction there at USC. Would be interesting to see how they go going forward.
I thought it was pretty cool to look back and see kind of where we were at. And both had Ohio State was really right there in the Big Ten, probably should have won. So Can't get through Michigan, not my problem. Kind of disappointed I didn't pick Penn State now there too. I probably would not have picked Oregon though. Honestly, I probably would have left them out.
Yeah,
so.
true.
But anyway, all right, SEC. Also, we both got the champion right, so we got a pretty good call here. But of course, it was just Georgia. You had Georgia over A&M, which was pretty close. I mean, occurring if A&M knocked out Texas, it could have happened going into the final week. I had Georgia over Alabama, so a little bit farther off there. Bama wasn't. I think they were a game back, but. Still they were kind of chalk picks a little bit, but still 6 out of 10s. I thought overall we got the champions. Your surprises, it gave you a 3 failing score here. Kentucky, not very strong. They did have 1 win over Ole Miss, but overall they were certainly a disappointment. And I think we both had, Alabama as well as a surprise team in the SEC. Kind of surprising. I mean, 9-3. The thing is, I think a lot of people were saying they'd be 8-4, 9-3, and I kind of thought maybe they would be okay and go 10-2, 11-1. So I'm not going to give myself credit there as being a surprise team. They ultimately missed the playoff. So, maybe I guess that's a surprise. Not in a good way there. And then your disappointing team, Paisley, another pretty good one. You got LSU. Halfway through, though, didn't look great there. It looked like they were on their way to winning some things, but obviously things turned south pretty quick. 8 out of 10 there, LSU. And my disappointing SEC team, which thankfully they lost the SEC championship game, it would have been really bad. But still gave myself a 0. I had Texas. Got to give them some credit. Had a chance to win the championship. They didn't. Maybe, You know what? I'm going to bump myself to a 1 out of 10 with Texas. Did not get it done in the SEC. But ultimately, I was wrong about them. I thought they would kind of be more of the Alabama, I guess, was, and miss the playoffs. And even though they were preseason favorites, I didn't think they'd be quite as dominant as they were. But we'll see how good they really are here in the playoff. But Paisley, what are your thoughts on the Southeastern Conference?
Yeah, tough grader on yourself, Mr. Berger. A couple 0 out of 10s. I mean, not beating around the bush there. I like it.
Well, I got one for you coming up.
Yeah, I probably have some 0 out of 10s coming up here. But yeah, Georgia, nice pick by both of us there. I think they had a lot of preseason hype, but definitely a little rocky early on. But they got in the championship, closed it out. You're right. Had Texas A&M myself. Almost got that. Would have just won that last week. That was setting up good. And Kentucky, that was a bad one after they peaked at Ole Miss. Kind of like the little flashes. Had a little flash in the pan, but then just couldn't really sustain it the entire year. Alabama, I think we were both on them a little bit. You're right. I thought we were expecting a little bit better. It would have been nice to see them in the playoff, but I don't think with 3 losses they should have been in. I think the committee got it right there. That Oklahoma loss was just brutal, scoring only 3 points. That was not a good look. My guy, Brian Kelly in LSU, thank you for giving me the props on that one with the good score. I like just seeing that program fail. It's really funny every year. But you're right. They did kind of look – I kind of turned on them. I was like, wait, maybe they are really good. And then they came back and were not that great down the stretch there. But, yeah, SEC – pretty fun. And Texas is a disappointing team. Didn't mind that one before the year. And I think we just kind of underestimated their schedule. You kind of look back at that schedule case and it's like, really didn't have to play some of the top SEC teams or like the really, the Alabama, the Ole Miss, some of the more dangerous ones. They did play Georgia, but besides that, kind of had a bottom feeder schedule in the SEC, which I think they benefited from. And we'll see how it suits them going forward in the playoffs with some of those concerns.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's what I underestimated about them. Not saying they aren't a good team, but I do think they were, certainly a beneficiary of that schedule. If they had, like, let's say Florida's schedule or, one of these other SEC schools, how really good would they – how many wins would they have gotten? 11 wins? I don't know. But, overall, solid on Georgia. But other than that, kind of surprises. And here's where we get really out of whack. We were kind of had some things right in the Big Ten, SEC. Big 12 – not so much. Both getting 0 out of 10s on the championship. I think we had like the bottom 4 and 5 teams make the championship and win them. You had Utah over UCF. Utah went 2-7 in conference, and so did UCF. And I had Arizona and Utah. I had Arizona beating Utah. Also, both went 2-7 in conference. So pretty much dead last in the Big 12, our teams, except for Oklahoma State. They went 0-9 in conference, which also was a preseason favorite. So not sure how they avoided this list, but that would have been really bad if we had Oklahoma State on there. Did not, so that's good. Your surprise team, UCF, awful. However, you did have Iowa State also as a surprise. So obviously they were a surprise going 7-2 in conference, nearly getting a bye in the college football playoff. I mean, it would have been similar to your Indiana pick. So giving you a solid 6 out of 10 on the surprises, obviously losing points on UCF there. I had West Virginia. I'm giving myself a 1 out of 10 here, not going the 0. I mean, they did, I think, win 6 games. So got to a bowl game, fired Neil Brown, so got to be happy there. But yeah, not a great pick. And then, yeah, we definitely both missed a little bit on the disappointing teams. Both of us had Colorado. Turned out they had a pretty solid year, I'd say above what we thought they were going to do. You also had Baylor in there, so you get some points there. I'm giving you a 2 out of 10. Baylor was a disappointment, but they were 6-3 in conference. I mean, and 8-4 overall, so still a pretty solid season for Baylor. Not quite to the championship level as it needed to be, but not bad. So we both kind of overall, I think we both pretty much failed the Big 12.
Yeah, we'll get to Baylor later in the show. Actually, I think they're playing some good ball. Definitely missed on them. And Colorado, I think, yeah, we both thought it was maybe going to be similar to last year, but definitely they improved. Almost got a little Big 12 championship appearance. Maybe got into the playoff. That would have been insane. So got to give Dion some credit there. It's fun looking back on some of these now. Utah, I mean, what happened to that program? Jesus, I mean, that they just fell off a cliff. Cam Rising, just stay out of college. He might be coming back for a 9th year, maybe. I don't know, but that knee is not right. Wasn't the same player after that Penn State game. I think he injured that right in the Rose Bowl. So
yeah, you're right.
It wasn't the same player, and that program just really needed him. So UCF was not a good pick. That was not good. I really thought they would turn around. Gus Malzahn out. Or who they just hired? They just hired that guy back again, who was their coach, Scott Frost. They just hired
Central Florida,
which is crazy. So I don't know where the UCF program is. That is a really weird hire there, hiring him back. So I think next year, maybe just bet the highest odds, like the bottom 2 or 3 odds you could get in the Big 12. And maybe when we did, I think, both agree that there'd be some chaos in the Big 12. And there definitely was. Every week, the last 4 weeks, the conference championship kept switching like the 2 teams. So I think we were right that there was some chaos. We couldn't pick the chaos correctly.
Yeah, Scott Frost too, former national champion Scott Frost, 2013 or
the banner,
17, UCF Knights. So anyway, I'd like to shout out him. But yeah, definitely was wide open, and we said the Big 12 and ACC were wide open. There was no clear cut, so don't want to discredit us too much, and definitely have some nice surprise picks. And Paisley, another you did pretty well in these surprise picks. I will say you did take 2 of them and a lot of them, so not to throw that out, but
gotta get some more odds. Yeah, gotta get some better odds.
Get some better odds here. ACC, we'll start with the champion. Both of us also getting 0s. Couldn't get much worse than this. You had Florida State winning over NC State, which not good at all. I had NC State over Florida State. So slightly better because NC State was slightly better than Florida State. My champion, but no, both failing 0 out of 10s. I mean, Florida State, I'm not even going to talk about them. You just anger me every time I do. But I'm not sure why we were both on NC State. I mean, I think I was looking for that team in the ACC that might be mid-pack and could exceed, but it turned out it went the other way, and they just turned out to be worse than we thought they were. So that was a disappointment, and that leads me right into my surprise. I had them as a surprise, and also Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech turned out to just be 6-6, mediocre, not great. You had SMU though, great pick there. College football playoff. You got Indiana, SMU, and now Iowa State. So you all pretty solid teams there as your surprises. So some credit there, and you also though had Virginia Tech as well. And then disappointing though, I think we did pretty good on the disappointments in the ACC. You had Pittsburgh and Miami. Pittsburgh off to a great start. Looked good. Probably lost the first 3 quarters of the season with them. However, last quarter, I'm not sure if they'd won a game in a month. So definitely got that one. And we both have Miami as disappointing. Looked like we were going to be wrong until we get to, November 10th, and Miami finds a way to lose both games. Not only, to finish 10-2, but also to miss the ACC championship game completely. and missed the playoff completely. So like to at least wave the victory flag on Miami, even though it took, the final 2 weeks. But yeah, ACC, some positives, totally missed on Florida State and NC State, but it's the name of the game.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I like circling back here, like we're saying, because Florida State definitely got all the headlines for being terrible. NC State was really bad too. Definitely not as bad, but I mean, you're right. They were kind of second, third in the conference. Maybe that's dark horse team, and oh my, they fell off a cliff too. Like they only had maybe a handful of wins, 1, 2, or 3 in ACC play, and they had a quarterback change once that guy from Coastal Carolina got injured midseason with a terrible injury. So just a weird program. The defense was really bad, which that's what they kind of hang their hat on. So that was a very disappointing team that no one was really talking about. Yeah, thanks for the call on SMU. I should maybe start betting some of these teams next year in the future. The playoff could have made some nice money. But yeah, Virginia Tech a little disappointing. Not a terrible year, but not as what we were expecting. Pitt, you're right, same thing, kind of not as bad as I thought, but definitely stumbled down the stretch. And our good. It seems like when we were agreeing, Colorado we didn't get, but we got this one with Miami. It took the whole year, but we just had to be patient. Case sometimes that's the name of the game, and Miami definitely stumbled down the stretch. So that was funny to see, and missing out on the conference championship, missing out on the playoff. I mean, they had it made for them. Just win, don't lose 2 out of the last 3 games to some mediocre ACC teams, and they found a way to do it. So that one was fun to get correct there.
Yeah, no, definitely some solid picks. We're gonna do the same. Got to do the same thing. Might keep all these records. Actually, pretty fascinating stuff. But yeah, we'll not need this anymore. So put that out of there. But fun little exercise to do. We figured we'd switch the winners and losers out just to go over that quick. But yeah, all right, to get right into it, college football playoff. We'll run through these first round games pretty quick, and then if we have any points on just the playoff as a whole as well, and now's time we could discuss a little bit of that. But yeah, we'll kick it off, Paisley, with your Fighting Irish here. I got the Indiana little in-state matchup. Hoosiers going to South Bend on Friday night. Notre Dame laying 7.5. We all know the story. Early loss, they win out. They get there, finding able to host a game. So obviously could not have gone any better since that NIU lost. And Indiana also, we just talked about them for a second, but good story for them. Didn't really beat anybody, but they won all the games they needed to win. And it's not easy to win all those games, even if they're lesser opponents. And normally, credit to them. Notre Dame laying 7.5. Paisley, how you feeling? This is a Friday night game. A lot of pressure. I saw it's pretty expensive to get into this game. It looks like around $1,000. So going to be a pretty wild atmosphere, I imagine.
Yeah, I don't know why it's so high. I don't know if they're trying to smoke out the Indiana fans and just bump the price up for all the wealthy Notre Dame fans in the area and alumni. But interesting tactic. But I mean, yeah, I think overall, I don't love the matchup, but I think once you get into playoffs in the NFL, college football, you're not going to love any matchup, I feel like, because all these teams are good. There's a reason why they're here. So, I think every team's dangerous. I don't love the matchup with Indiana. Definitely have some time to dig into this with all these picks, too. We still have a week and a half till they go live. In the bowl games that we'll get into later, it's just a little disclaimer that, still got a lot to dig into, but just giving some preliminary thoughts here. I kind of liked Indiana, honestly, with the points. I thought this was going to be around 3 or 4, maybe 5 tops. Opened up at 8, 8.5, down to 7.5. It might come down a little bit more. So I just think I kind of like some of these underdogs, honestly, in these week 1 matchups. So I would honestly lean Indiana here, but I think Notre Dame gets the job done. I think at home, their run game is just so elite. I think it's really tough to stop. Indiana did a good job stopping the run all year, but like you said, who they really played. Notre Dame's defense, I think it's tough when you look at some of these last games of the year. I try not to have some recency bias, but USC definitely moved the ball up and down on Notre Dame's defense. But I feel like we talked about, they were kind of playing a playoff game every week the last couple of weeks because they knew they had to win out. So I feel like they spent a lot of energy. They were kind of a little gassed going into that USC game. So I think they really could use a nice little break here, a little 2 weeks off, get rested up, especially on the defensive side. They were a little banged up. So if they're at full strength, I just think Notre Dame's too good on both sides of the ball here. But I do expect Indiana to keep it close. I like Signetti, like him as a coach. So would kind of lean Indiana, but I actually kind of like a total there. I like 50.5. I like the over. I think Notre Dame definitely, like I said, showed some holes in that defense, but I still think it's a pretty good stop unit. Maybe not an elite one. Maybe that the numbers would say it is. I think Indiana has a really good offense with Curtis Rourke. He was a little banged up with the thumb too, so he gets some time off. So you have to factor that into it. So I think both offenses should really have some success here. I thought this number had opened up 49, I think, so moving up a touch, but just that was a little low. I thought it should be like in the mid 50s. So I really like the over in this game, but I would kind of lean Indiana in this one. But should be a fun one on campus Friday night game, first one of the college football playoff. But I think Notre Dame survives and advances as well, but doesn't cover the spread.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And these lines are, I'm looking at them now. I mean, they're all over a possession with Notre Dame laying 7.5, Penn State laying 9, Texas laying 11, Ohio State, I think it was like 8. Now it's down to 7.5. So crazy lines here. And this is all new, you know, with the on-campus playoff games. And I think you might be right where there's some of these teams are just, you know, laying a little bit too many points. I agree. I think Indiana is certainly a respectable team. I mean, they're able to move the ball. I mean, we saw what they did against the mighty Purdue Boilermakers, but could not stop them in that game. Anyway, not expecting anything like that to happen, but you're right. The only, you know, the difference is at home, you know, at night, I think Notre Dame, you know, maybe some of these lines, these offenses, you know, are going to explode. It's going to be a lot of excitement. You know, this is something that's really been never done for, you know, home playoff games. I'll say it again. So I don't know. It's kind of all over the place, but I'm with you. I think I like the points with 7.5. I just think that's so many, and I could see this being a 4-quarter game. Total sets at 50.5. So we'll see. It should be fun. You know, it's cool too. They have the in-state, you know, game. It just worked out that way. But yeah, Indiana, Notre Dame, Friday night.
Yeah, and just final point that I was thinking while you were speaking there, Case, about Kurt Snetti, the head coach. He's really good at using motivation, as we saw, and I think he was a little pissed off in their whole team that they didn't get a home game. I think they kind of got bumped back a little bit, and you know, the schedule and the strength schedule definitely was the reason why, and they didn't really have a key big win, like you said. So I think maybe that motivation, you know, it might show early on, but then it kind of fizzles out towards the end. But I think they're a little pissed off in the end. They didn't get a home playoff game. So I think this is going to be a fun matchup. This might be, obviously because I'm a fan, but this one might be the one I'm very much interested to watch here, because I think it'll be a good battle.
Yeah, going to be a ton of fun. And then on we'll get to the Saturday slate, Saturday noon, Penn State hosting SMU once again at noon. I knew this was going to happen just based on these how it all shaped up. Disappointing at noon, but should at least still be exciting. Laying 9. Glad it's not Alabama, but actually, it's weird. I think Alabama's better than SMU. I'm glad SMU got in, but as a fan, I would have been pretty excited to see Alabama come to State College, and probably would have been a 4:00 game or maybe an 8:00 game, maybe 4. They moved that Clemson, Texas to noon is probably what they would have done. So it would have been cool, but I'm happy as a, you know, Penn State fan, not too happy. I do think anything could happen. Like really, I actually kind of probably similar to you. I'm almost like hesitant that the line's so much. It's 9, and it just makes me think like, man, kind of sucks to be the pretty heavy favorite, because you know you're expected to win. Not to say it's not a huge game and it's a playoff game, but it's like, all right, well now all of a sudden it's like, all right, it's Illinois come to town. You got to win this game. Like you're fully expected to win. Whereas if it was maybe Alabama or something, or a, you know, bigger team, is, you know, the win would feel like more, even though it's not really the case. Each win in the playoffs is important, but it just has that feel a little bit. But yeah, I think Penn State is better than SMU, especially the way their offense showed against Oregon. I think they could, if they were able to score and get the ball running, or, you know, run the ball, and if their defense is at least how it played against other, you know, Big Ten teams, even if it just plays as well as it did against Ohio State back in October, I think they'll be okay. But, you know, that being said, SMU is a scary team. They got some fast guys on offense, and we've seen at times Penn State, you know, not perform at a high level and struggle with some of these lesser opponents. And SMU is certainly not a lesser opponent. They're really good. So I don't know. Like I said, right now, I feel like I'm leaning with all these teams with the points. Maybe that'll change, you know, leading up to the game. It may change that. But yeah, right now, 9 just feels like too much. And the total's sitting at 53.5.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very similar to Notre Dame. Like I was just kind of have these numbers in your head, like what's your projection of it? And these numbers came out. And I was like, that I was way off. Like I wasn't even close. And this one's actually been going up. I think this kind of opened 8.5, kind of moving up to 9. So gonna be interesting now that you have some time in between. Like I might go rewatch that SMU Clemson game, really see,
Yeah.
a cut up version of it, not the entire game, and just kind of see how SMU played because the final score was one thing, but I think they, like I said, they stopped the run pretty well. So if they could do that to Penn State, I think SMU is a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. But can they win this game outright? Like, I don't think so. But I'm with you. Like, I think they'll keep these games close for against the spread purposes. But I think the favorites should move on, except for one that we'll get to in a little bit here. But I think the favorites will move on. But I think these underdogs keep it close, maybe cover some spreads here. I just think these numbers are just really inflated, and they're going to keep going up. If you like the dog, maybe just wait till you can maybe get a 10.5 on SMU. And if you like the favorite, maybe try and snag it early here before. But also try and wait for these line movements too, because that could kind of tell you where most of the money, maybe some sharp action is on. So just maybe now you have a week and a half, maybe just see where these numbers kind of go. Or if they're not really moving at all, that'll kind of also be another indication. But yeah, kind of laying SMU in this one. I want to take the under too, but just the way Penn State's offense exploded in that Big Ten championship game, I'm a little hesitant on that.
Yeah.
I like that number up a little bit more. I think that number is also on the rise too. So this one I'm also really intrigued to watch this one. I mean, every game's going to be cool to see, but I want to see if SMU can play to Penn State's talent level, keep this game close. I just fear for SMU's offense again going up against Penn State defense. That didn't look that great, but I think Penn State can match up a little bit better against SMU than they did against Oregon. But I think SMU's defense can maybe show a little bit more. I don't know if they could hold up the entire game. So it should be a fascinating one. But I think SMU keeps this one close with the inflated number here.
Paisley, we may have to do a live Twitter here feed. Is a Twitter space is what they call it at the SMU Penn State game on that Saturday. May have something special for the fans out there on that one.
We will be there live, boots on the ground in Happy Valley. Should be a fun time. Looking forward to it.
Hopefully it's 10 inches of snow and 0 degrees is what I'm hoping for.
It would be a good factor in Penn State and Notre Dame and Ohio State possibly. Definitely.
Right.
No in Texas, but that could be a thing. Definitely check the weather. It's a good call case.
Going right to the Clemson going to Texas. Texas, this entire playoffs, since the rankings have been out, they were supposed to get the bye. We all know what happened. Lost to Georgia. Clemson on the other side wasn't supposed to be here. So a little bit of house money feel for Clemson. Feel like they got some fight in them. Paisley, what do you think? They have any shot here? Texas laying 11, totals 51.5. Should be a good game. Clemson's playing, pretty good, and they get that win over SMU after almost collapsing in the second half of that one. But still, cool to see Dabo back in it. We'll see the 12 seed. They could not get the bye because of how the ranking shaped up with Boise and SMU. So, but interesting matchup. Another one, ACC going to now SEC, heading to Austin. Really the only Southern school that's getting a home game with Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State all hosting. So that'll be fun. But it's 4:00 on the 21st.
Yeah, again, I kind of like Clemson right off the bat, just initial reaction, but was seeing a lot of guys that I follow or a lot of people that I respect picking Texas at 9.5, 10, moving this line up to 11. But I don't know, maybe I'm just liking the underdogs too much here, but kind of like the under in this one too. I think Texas offense just really broken, and I think Texas defense is really good. So I think they've been kind of a sneaky under team. You think with Ewers, some of those weapons, and Sark at the helm there, you think they'd be scoring a ton of points. But I think they've quietly been a nice under team the last couple weeks of the season. So I think if Clemson could move the ball a little bit, I think they could stay within this number for sure. Maybe punching some touchdowns. But I just think I really fear this Texas defense. I think they are the best defense in the country. So can Clemson really push them? Also another reason why I want to rewatch that Clemson SMU game, kind of see where Clemson was at the entire game. I just think Texas defense is going to be too much for Clemson here. But again, 11's a lot. I don't see Texas really lighting up the scoreboard here, but I just think 11's too much. And I kind of like a nice size play on the under. Still got to do some research on Clemson plus 11, but I kind of like the under here at 51.5.
Yeah, no, my initial thought, and really, that's why I think I do need to reevaluate all this, because I like the points again. I mean, I feel like Texas hasn't shown enough to me yet that they're just blowing out. I mean, every team they've covered 11 on, they were supposed to they were heavy favorites, and I mean even A&M was they covered that spread, but I think it was 5.5. But it was a 17-7 game. I mean, it wasn't the type of game that I really expected. And we talked about Texas. I just haven't seen that next level. I mean, I know a lot of teams fit in this bucket, but yeah, that's why once again I just think 11's too much. I think Clemson, will hang in. I think Texas will win the game, but I don't know. Once we get a little bit closer, we'll get something posted here for the fans listening. I know we've been a little wishy-washy on these, but definitely lean Texas again with the points.
Yeah, I think this also could be a factor with these last two games that we'll break down. But I mean, Texas fans probably aren't happy that they lost that SEC championship. Ewers didn't look that good. If they struggle early, what is the crowd going to do? Because now it's a home playoff game. Like being a Philadelphia Eagles fan, if stuff's not going good early, the fans will start booing. They'll get a little restless. The crowd will quiet down a little bit. So if Texas gets off to a rocky start with Arch Manning being the backup, like it's kind of a hot take type or like ESPN type take, not to get into one of those, but like the fans know they have Arch in the waiting. Ewers hasn't been looking great the last couple of games. Like if they start off a little rocky, does the fans start to turn? Does Ewers tighten up a little bit? So, and Clemson, like you said, has nothing to lose. They kind of free rolled the AC championship, looked good, won that game. So they're kind of playing with house money. They got nothing to lose. A lot of pressure on Texas. That should have got the bye. I mean, they were projected to get that bye for so long. Now they have to switch and play the first weekend of the playoffs. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And then going to Columbus, final first round playoff game. Tennessee coming to town. They kind of a little bit disappointing there. They thought they had a shot at the home game. Ohio State falls to Michigan, final game of the regular season, and get to host 7.5 point favorites. Another this might have been the most surprising of them all, that Indiana, Notre Dame, and Tennessee, Ohio State are the same, practically the same line. Ohio State laying 7.5 feels like a ton there. Totals 47.5. Paisley, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this one I actually have a very strong conviction case, not a wishy-washy one. Tennessee was the team I did not want to play. If I'm a Notre Dame fan, you might have felt the same as a Penn State fan, being in that 5, 6, 7 range. And I think Tennessee's a dangerous team. I really do. I think they're really good, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The secondary, little bit questionable, but I don't think Ohio State is going to take advantage of that, because I think a lot of people love Ohio State, and I still don't know why. Like, what else do they have to do, Case, to get some disrespect? You were 20-point favorites at home to a Michigan team who didn't have a quarterback and threw for 40 yards, and you scored 10 points. So now you're bringing in an SEC defense, an SEC offense that has been battle-tested throughout the year. I don't really love Nico Mava or whatever his last name is, but he's a little bit better than Davis Warren at Michigan, so you're going to get a little bit more pass game. I think Tennessee's a really good running team. I think they're physical, kind of could bring that SEC toughness to Ohio State. I think this is a bad matchup for Ohio State, Case, and I got Tennessee plus 7.5. I got Tennessee money line plus 250. I usually don't like to dip into the money lines, but I'm just really selling this Ohio State stock. I don't know where the mindset of this team is. Usually if it's a good team or like a well, coach team or a focused team, they'll bounce back from these losses. You've seen Georgia really respond well after losses, but I think this Ohio State team, I think that loss really broke them against Michigan. I'm seeing Ohio State in the championship with some of these projections, and they definitely could. They have the talent, but Case, we have a full year of this now. Even in that Penn State game, you go back to that Penn State game, you were there in person. Didn't really wow you. I mean, they won that game with defense and running the ball, scoring. It was a 17-14 game. Could have went either way at the end. So, I'm just not buying this Ohio State team at all. I think they're done. That Michigan game just really salted it. And someone made a good point that I was listening to. Did Ohio State really want a home game because of how that last game went? The fans are restless. You could tell Ryan Day I think he might be gone, maybe fired, maybe leaving by himself. I think there's just a lot of turmoil. I think it's going to be there. They felt so much pressure against Michigan. Now you lose that. Now, how much pressure are they going to feel in this playoff game? I mean, everyone's saying they got to win the national championship or Ryan Day's out or all this other stuff. Chip Kelly's maybe looking at some other head coaching positions I was reading earlier this week. So I just think there's a lot of noise around Ohio State. I think Tennessee's coming under the radar here. I think Tennessee upsets them and gets the upset here outright against Ohio State and moves on to play Oregon.
All right. Pretty bold prediction there by Mr. Paisley, taking the Tennessee Volunteers to win outright. Yeah, I mean, I agree where I am confused. It does seem there's a lot of national media that's very, very high on Ohio State. I mean, still they're sitting at like sixth in the poll, and then you have they're like first or second in all the betting odds. That does seem a little odd. I guess it's just because, like you said, it's the potential is there, the talent is there, the players seem to be there. They just haven't gotten it together really to have that, impressive, victory. I mean, after the deflate against Michigan, and how do they respond? I'm not sure I'm there quite yet on Tennessee. So this will be an early one for you if you're right here. I go back and forth. I still think Ohio State should win this game at home. But yeah, this will be a huge. I mean, if they don't win this game too, as a 7.5 point favorite, I mean, Dave's got to be at it. I said it. I made a prediction at some point, like week 1 or 2, that I said Ryan Day's gone. It kind of looked like I was going to be wrong, and then thankfully Michigan, resurrected that prediction. So big shout out to Michigan for doing at least something right this year. So happy about that. I mean, I love seeing Ohio State in disarray. Trust me, I'd be the number one fan saying I'd love to see Tennessee go in there and beat them. Nothing would really make me happier than that. So not quite I'm there yet, though. I like Tennessee with the points. I think right now we'll see as we get closer. Maybe I'll have a pick on it. I don't know. I don't really trust Tennessee either. That's my problem quite yet. I mean, they do have that early loss to Arkansas, so I think both of these teams have some flaws, but the potential's there as well. So 2 teams that I don't think I trust either of them. But yeah, like the points. Also, not sure I'm there on the outright win yet. Maybe I'll get there. We'll see. Yeah, well, it's going to be fun. All 4 of these matchups going to take away a few things from all of them.
Yeah, I just thought the 7.5 was very intriguing. I thought this would be more 3-4 type point game, and I'm just going to leave you with one thought. Will Howard on Ohio State. Watch that entire Michigan-Ohio State game. He just doesn't impress me. And if you need a drive late or you need something, I don't think their own team trusts him. If you watch that play calling in the second half, they were just running the ball because they were afraid he was going to mess up and throw it. And it's not like they were up like 2 scores. Like, they needed some drives. I just don't think he's the guy. I think he is so overrated. I really don't think he's great. I think you need a quarterback to play at a high level to win some of these high-level games in the playoffs or a championship setting. So I think the defense is really good. That's why I kind of like the under, too. I think it'll be a grinded-out game. But I just do not trust Will Howard to get it done through the air, and they can't really run the ball. So I don't know where these people are seeing Ohio State winning by 17 plus here. I just don't see it.
It just doesn't make sense with all their elite receivers on the outside how they can't move the ball. It boggles my mind. I know it's Will Howard, like you just said, but like I'll stand back there and throw the ball. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's enough talent. Like they should be able to overcome a bad quarterback. I don't know why they're not or what's going on, but yeah, good. I mean, good point there. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, hopefully we're right because we both like seeing Ohio State falling down here. But
I'd be thrilled. Trust me. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say I want Ohio State to lose more than Penn State to win. Not going to say that, but let's just say if that at least the game's at noon, it'll give me something to look forward to. I'll be the biggest Tennessee fan probably in the country if Penn State were to fall to SMU. Just throwing that out there. Paisley,
John, ready to go, baby. Saturday.
National championship game prediction. Mr. Paisley, we got all 12 teams ready to go. It was a long season. Got the final bracket. Want your thought? We'll both give a, prediction. I guess we could just say them. But what's your thoughts here? Doesn't have to be cemented, but want to give you a good opportunity. What's your prediction for not game by game, but just national championship? Two teams. Which team ends up winning it all?
Yeah, I think I like Oregon to get in the top spot, but like we said, I think it's a tough spot. You're going to have to play Ohio State or Tennessee, then play not hopefully, but probably Texas in that semifinal. So I think Oregon has a tough path, but I think that offense is humming. I just like them to get to the national championship on the top side. Then on the bottom side case, I'm so torn. I'm so torn because
wide open, Jared.
I think that Georgia game in round 2 is going to be tough for either team, for Notre Dame or Indiana, whoever wins that. And I think Penn State should advance to the semifinals. Everyone's just penciling them in, but I'm telling you, Case, I would look out for Boise State too. I mean, if Penn State gets past SMU, let's see how they look there. But I think Boise State is people are overrating them a little bit. I think they're actually a really solid team. But I think it's going to be a Notre Dame Penn State case in the semifinal. I think we're going to get that matchup. I think Notre Dame wins their first 2. I think Penn State wins the first 2. And not to be a homer, but I think Notre Dame gets it done against Penn State to get to the national championship in a close one. I think you're going to have Oregon, Notre Dame in the championship, and I'll take Oregon in a shootout. Maybe like a similar Big Ten 45-35, something like that. Take the over if Notre Dame and Oregon get to the national championship. But that's what I'm rolling with right now. I love it? No, I do not love it at all. I wouldn't put any money on it, but I'm going to go Oregon over Notre Dame in the national championship.
Well, Paisley, I'm glad you said that because I agree. I think Oregon will be there. I think they were, as I said in the beginning, I just watching that Big Ten championship game, it felt like Oregon was there. I mean, offensively, they look really good, and I'm not sure. I think that Tennessee Ohio State will be tough, but I do think they'll beat Ohio State in a rematch again, just where Ohio State's at, and I don't mind picking Oregon over Tennessee at all. I think they'll get to the semifinals. I think they get to the championship. Might have a couple close calls. Not saying these are going to be blowout wins, but I do like Oregon getting there. And in the Southern, Paisley, I'm glad you picked Notre Dame because I have a very similar thought process. And I hated to do this as well, but I'm going to go with Penn State all the way there. I think similar reasons that you laid out. I can't pick Notre Dame over Penn State. I just can't do it. I'm not going to pick it. I think it's possible, but I do think that Notre Dame is going to get past Indiana at home. I think they beat Georgia. I'm not picking Georgia with the backup quarterback. I just can't do it. I thought about floating Oregon over Boise State. I thought maybe Boise State had a chance to have a little bit of a Cinderella story. Gentry has a big game versus Penn State. Maybe they knock off, get a couple upsets, but I think it's open. I think Notre Dame has a very good path. I think they got a shot. Backup quarterback potentially playing second round. Then they get another Penn State, Boise State, SMU team potentially. I think they can win that game. So I do think it's wide open. I'm more confident in Oregon getting there, but I'm just going to roll with the rematch, the Big Ten championship rematch, Oregon, Penn State, but Oregon still wins it. I think Oregon will win again. Can't pick. I haven't seen it until Franklin gives me any reason to believe that. I can't do it. So I'm with you there. Similar, but sticking with the homer picks.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, hey, and we actually have some real shots. We'll see what happens. Got to get through week one, but I think the bottom half definitely looks a little more gettable. I mean, the top half is just a little scary with Ohio State if they play their potential, Tennessee if they play their potential, Texas, Oregon. You got some heavy hitters up there, and meanwhile, Notre Dame and Penn State have some favorable matchups. I think everyone's kind of penciling Notre Dame, Penn State, but Case, I'm telling you, I think one of them will not get there. I'm not sure which one, but I think one of them will miss out on that and we'll get a weird Boise State, Georgia, one of that kind of matchup there in the semifinals, but just a little weird prediction there.
Yeah, I'll say if one of them didn't, well, not to just say Penn State will lose, but I feel like there is something in Boise. I feel like they are good enough. They're running back. I don't know. Something about me I'm slightly concerned about Boise a little bit more. So I'll just say that we'll see if that happens, and we'll see what the line even would be in that game, but should be fun. Anyway.
Actually going to make a quick point on that Case. I was looking at DraftKings right before we started, and there is some hypothetical lines for rounds.
Okay. Yeah. What are they?
I did. The only two I looked at and noticed was Penn State 12.5 against Boise State. And then Notre Dame was -2 against Georgia. Those will all be on neutral field, so they do take account to that. But I just thought those are some very interesting numbers. You could bet on them, and then if they don't happen, you just get your money back. But it's fun to look at some of those hypothetical round two matchups.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I did see some of that. 12 points. Geez, that scares me, Paisley. I don't like going out. I don't like
making it too easy, and it's like I don't know. It's not that easy. So
I agree. All right, we're already over the hour. We still have a couple quick things. Army Navy coming up this Saturday. Can't wait. Always a great American tradition, even though Paisley was very anti-armed forces a few weeks ago in one of his picks. But I will give you credit. You were very high on Army Navy earlier in the season. This is going to be fun. Both teams are winning records. Army really good. We got President Donald J. Trump will be there in attendance, so that's always exciting. And Army 6.5-point favorite. Total's pretty high this year, 38.5 for Army Navy. I mean, this might be a shootout with the way this is going. What are your thoughts on this one? I think I like Army. I think they're going to get rolling. I think they're playing well. And, if I get 6.5, I think I'll take it. But interested to hear your thoughts. This game in Baltimore this year, I think they cycle from Philly to Baltimore through DC. So we're back in Baltimore for it. But should be a good one. Finally, we get an Army-Navy game where it's like two actually pretty good teams.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it should be a fun one. I think these is definitely the best they've been. Both teams, like usually one's really good and the other one's not that good. But I'm with you too. I'm kind of rolling with Army minus 6.5. It's interesting to see where the Navy quarterback is at. He had that injury with the thumb, tried to play through it. Just that offense wasn't the same. I think they might have had the backup quarterback in that last game of the year against ECU. But I don't like playing this much in this type of rivalry. I mean, this is the biggest rivalry where they hate each other so much. So, but I kind of like Army. I think they're just really good this year, both sides of the ball. I wish I would have taken them against Tulane in the conference championship. It was such a good spot for them. Just that regret there. Just didn't see that one. And I kind of like the over too. I think it's at 38.5, but I think they kind of went away from the traditional triple option where it was under center all the time, motion and stuff like that. So I think they're more now shotgun. They're passing it a lot more. They always like to have some trick plays up their sleeves, both sides of the ball here. So I'm going to go Army minus 6.5 and the over 38.5. The over's been coming down a little bit, so I'm kind of waiting to see if it keeps dropping a little bit. But give me Army and the over, the great rivalry there.
No, I love it, and I think I'm actually we might have to make this a PB bet or parlay of the Army-Navy game or something, because I do as well like the over. I think we're going to see points. I have a good feeling about it. I think we're going to see some big runs, 60, 70-yard breakaway runs. I think we get to 38.5. May just be my lock on Saturday, so we'll have to see that. But
this is one to choose from, so we might have to lock it up.
Yeah, loving that one. So yeah, this is this Saturday, Army Navy, America's game. Looking forward to that one, and then got the Heisman Trophy presentation right after that, so should be good. All right, final segment. Got some bowl matchups, just mainly our picks. Now's the time, though, to highlight, any bowl games. This is, bowl season definitely getting a little overshadowed by the college football playoff, but it's still there. We got a lot of intriguing matchups in this one. So Paisley, I'll just kick it to you first. I think you have an extra pick than me, but want some of your thoughts on this and what you see out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's still kind of early, and you got to really take a close look at the opt-outs and coaching changes and stuff like that. That's what makes bowl season good or bad. You could really get an advantage, or sometimes you get a bad number or some. So it's good to be waiting sometimes. Good time to strike early. I'm going to go Buffalo against Liberty. Give me Buffalo plus 2.5. I think this is the last bowl of the year, actually. It's like this, January 4th or 5th.
Oh, yeah, the Bahamas Bowl.
Yeah, so last bowl of the bowl season, but then you'll still have the playoffs going on and stuff. But I just don't like this Liberty team all year, and I kind of like this Buffalo team in the MAC. I've been playing some good ball. They're really fundamentally sound, really good on special teams, and I think Liberty's a little loose. So I just thought this was I thought Buffalo should be favored by a little bit here, so I'll take them plus 2, plus 110. So give me the Buffalo Bulls plus 2 against Liberty.
Like it. It's on the Bahamas. Great selection. That was, that game could be interesting. We saw that a couple of years ago. I think there was that Hail Mary ending with Central Michigan that was in the Bahamas Bowl. So yeah, that one is the last game. I think it's like after New Year's. So got some time. Might be some things that change from now to then, but nonetheless, love the pick there. I'm going right to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, Paisley. Favorite Pop-Tarts Bowl. I think I said I was betting against Miami a week ago, whatever bowl game they have. So I'm doing it. I'm taking Iowa State with 3.5 against Miami. And like you said, a lot could impact these picks, and certainly follow the page. We'll continue putting out picks. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do it, but we will have picks for the bowl games and the playoffs on the page. So make sure you're following us and look out for those right here on X. But no, definitely one I'm taking. Iowa State 3.5. I don't care if Iowa State has 10 guys out. I'm taking them. Also, I think it's more likely Miami's going to lose a shit ton of people because it's Miami, and then that's going to happen. All these players are probably mad they didn't make the playoff. Half of them are going to enter the transfer portal, so we'll see. So I could expect this game even being in Iowa State's favor by the time this kicks off. Not sure what the date is. I don't see it here, but December 28th, a little post-Christmas action. But yeah, first one, Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando, Florida. Give me Iowa State.
I like it. I was very close to putting this one on my sheet as well, Case. I just love fading Miami in bowl games because of the disappointing ends to their season. You're right, with all the opt-outs now. A couple NFL guys, too, so some NFL guys might be sitting out. So I agree with you. I like Iowa State in this one. I'll be fading Miami usually every year in the bowl season. So keeping it in Florida, I'm going to go with the Florida Gators, minus 13. This number has been on the move a lot. It has started at 8, and it's up to 13 already now. So I don't love it, but I took it a little bit earlier when it was still at 10. But I just think we talked about this last podcast. I like Florida. I like their momentum. They're been going on. I think they're going to keep rolling. They don't have a lot of opt-outs. It's a young team. The coach is back next year. And Tulane, who their opponent is, the quarterback hit the transfer portal a couple days ago. I think that's why this line movement, they did not look good at all. If you watch that Army game, I watched the first half and kind of flipped it off because they were getting so outplayed. They just looked like they didn't want to be there. The coach had some rumors of going other places. I think he is returning. So just a little bit of disorganized going on in the program there. I think Florida, the momentum just in the opposite direction. It is moving really quickly, so maybe try and grab this one as early as you can if you like Florida. But this one's in Tampa too, so Florida doesn't have to go too far. Should have a lot of fans. But give me the Florida Gators and Billy Napier to get a nice blowout victory in the bowl season.
Yeah, great pick. And like you said, not far from their home, so down in Tampa. So right there, I like it. Lane 13, we'll see against Tulane in the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. So good pick there. Anyway, I'm going to where am I going? All right, I'm going to Alabama and Michigan in the ReliQuest Bowl. I'm going to take Alabama minus the 10, and this is one that I may go back and forth on this one. I will lock Alabama in as a pick. Things could change based on the portal, but I just saw this matchup and I feel like a couple things could happen. We could have a lot of Alabama sit outs, but I just think Michigan is kind of in the same way, and they're kind of in a rebuilding process. I don't think, they're there and they're excited to play, but their highlight was beating Ohio State, but I think they're kind of looking forward to next year. I think they're getting new coaches. I think they're kind of in that transition process. And I just think Alabama needs to take the anger out, honestly, at someone. And I think, like they've done in years past, I just think they're going to try to score a lot of points, and I think they're going to try. I think they will actually attempt to blow Michigan out. Not saying, this is weird because it's two teams that have completely different regular seasons, but yeah, I just think there's motivation on Alabama's side. I think Kalen DeBoer wants to take his anger out on somebody, and I think Alabama will at least try to. Maybe they'll fail, and Michigan will surprise us, but I don't know. I saw this line, and I'm like, man, I could see Alabama trying to win this game like 35-10 or something, or 42-10. I don't know. And Michigan still can't really move the ball, so that's out there too.
Yeah, this one I was back and forth. I'm kind of like, I don't know what side to pick, but I was kind of thinking, what is Jalen Milroe going to do? Because he had all that hype coming into the year. I don't think he's going to go to the NFL. Does he come back to Bama next year? Does he transfer somewhere else? He was an interesting player. I'm thinking about this offseason. Like, what is he actually going to do? Because didn't really light it up this year. Did they really want him back? It's not good enough to probably go to the NFL and get picked really high. So he's going to be a name to look out for. But I think he could play. I think he'll probably play in this bowl game for Alabama and then maybe figure out some stuff after the bowl game. So if he's playing, I kind of like Alabama minus 10 there with you, Case. I'm going to go Army. We're going to keep it with the Knights here. Minus 14. This number also moved a lot. I bet this in Florida a little bit earlier before the line move really jumped out. So if it's getting too high, maybe have some caution. But they're playing Marshall. Marshall's coach just left. Their quarterback, I think he's playing in the game, but just two key personnel to look at there. But I think Marshall got a little lucky. They beat Louisiana for the conference championship. They really won that game fair and square, but I think they're a little overhyped. I think they're going to have a ton of guys in the portal. And I think the armed services really do well in these bowl games. I feel like I've faded Miami every year, but I think I bet Army every year, no matter the circumstance. They really like playing these bowl games, take it seriously. They'll have a nice win after beating Navy, and then they'll roll right into the bowl game here and get a nice blowout victory. So I like backing the armed forces here in the bowl season.
Glad to hear you're back on board, Paisley. Yeah, Navy got the what was it, the Military Bowl this year, and Army is in the Independence Bowl. Love the that tradition we got going every year. I think I'm on that one as well with you. And speaking of the military academies, I always remember being young in our bowl pool, always picking Air Force, and it seems like the Air Force won every single year when they were in a bowl.
Well,
So it's something to keep note. But no, like it back on Army -14. I'm gonna send it to the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, going with Nebraska, laying 2.5 against Boston College. I just think this is going to be a pretty low scoring game. The total's at 45.5. Boston College, you're right there. I think these are both teams that have some positives to take away from the year. I think there's definitely still a building going on with Matt Rule. Nebraska didn't quite hit their marks where they thought they could be in 2024, but these are teams I think that are going to a good matchup where I don't expect a lot of opt-outs here. I think we're going to have a lot of guys that want to win here, and we got Bill O'Brien and what he's been able to do in just a year there at Boston College, and Matt Rule here still trying to turn things around Nebraska. So it's just an interesting matchup. I have Nebraska -2.5. I think they're going to get the win there. I think we'll end the year on a positive note for Matt Rule. But yeah, I expect not a ton of points here. I probably also like the under at 45.5. Going to be cold. This is in Yankee Stadium as well, so going to be a cold one there in December between Boston College and Nebraska.
Yeah, love the Pinstripe Bowl. One of my favorites there. Always a fun one. Always a battle. Two defensive teams going at it. So love that pick there, Case. I'm going to close us off here with Baylor +1.5. This one did move as well. I've got this at Baylor +3, moving down to 1.5. Playing our good friends LSU and Brian Kelly. I'm fading Brian Kelly here. They have a lot of opt-outs, a lot of transfer portal. I think Nussmeier said he's coming back actually next year, so I think the quarterback will be there. But I kind of like this Baylor team. If you look at their kind of trajectory the last couple of games of the year, they've been really playing some good ball. They probably won't have a ton of opt-outs or a lot of NFL guys, so I'm kind of looking at teams like that where I kind of know what I'm getting. I was surprised they were the underdogs here. I thought they'd be favorites. But if you look at Baylor, I think they've been playing some really good ball. They're a physical team, run the ball. I just think it's a bad matchup for LSU, who sometimes doesn't really care, I feel like, if they're in these bowl games in Miami. So I think Baylor a little bit better than we thought, like we said, and weren't projected to be in the bowl. I think they're going to be excited to get to be in a bowl game. So give me Baylor +1.5 here to beat down Brian Kelly there.
Yeah, and they had a good, finish to their regular season, Baylor, going 8-4 in the Big 12. So, yeah, like things to build off of, whereas LSU's kind of the opposite. The disappointment set in. You're having players enter the transfer portal, stuff like that. And it definitely has changed. I mean, bowl games it's so difficult. It's not like it even was just like 5 years ago even, and it was still already getting out of hand. But really, even since COVID, it got even more out of hand, and NIL. And it's certainly not quite the same feel as it was. And obviously, it's disappointing because everybody loves bowl season, but now with the college football playoff, and I think that's also why it was already kind of starting to die out when we had to expand the playoffs, and I think that's a reason what makes the playoff great is because you get so many good quote unquote bowl games, really, because all these first round matchups you play into those New Year's Six, so we'll get to see the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, all 6 of them, and makes all those games matter again, and you won't have any opt-outs in those 12 teams because they all still believe you're going to see a chance to win a title. So that's the positives of it. But yeah, certainly makes the rest of these games quite a challenge to pick because you don't know. You may not know until a day or two before, even the day of, like who's the starting quarterback, like what's Jalen Milroe going to do, like crazy questions. Where in the regular season it's a lot easier. Bowl games pretty difficult to pick.
Yeah, really got to do your research if you're out there. Really make sure you know who's playing. It's tough. Like you said, it could happen a couple hours before the game. It could happen weeks before. Definitely makes it very tough to pick some of these games. So just have some caution going into it. But I'm excited. Look for the teams that want to be there versus the teams that probably don't want to play an extra game. So that's also motivation stuff to factor into. But I'm going to be excited for those bowl games midweek in between the playoffs. I always love watching the Bowls here in December, a little bit in January. So I'm going to be excited. I love watching some of these matchups here and some of these teams playing hard.
And I just have other two quick games that I'm not picking anything yet, but cool. Alamo Bowl, we got BYU and Colorado going at it. Could have been the Big 12 championship game in Dallas that we were talking about. It never happened. They didn't play each other in the regular season, so now we get to see them go at it in the Alamo Bowl between BYU and Colorado. And then also I wrote down the Cheez-It Bowl, South Carolina, Illinois. Not sure why I like this game. I just think it's a good ending for Illinois. Top 20 season, ends up finishing ranked 20th, 9-3, good record for them. South Carolina obviously playing some of the best football they've played all season right now. So that line is, I think it's as much as 10.5 right now for those that are looking at South Carolina. But we'll see. Both seasons crazy, and anything could happen. But yeah, South Carolina, Illinois, I also just wrote down in the Cheez-It Bowl. But we'll see. I think Clemson was in the Cheez-It Bowl a couple of years ago. Not sure what happened, but
I think they were. Yeah, I think you're right. Looking out for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I hope the Pop-Tart goes in the toaster at the end of the game. That was a fun sight to see.
I was in Miami. All right. Well, that was a pretty long one today. I know it was longer than some of the other ones. We'll be back at some point before the next round of the playoffs, just for a quick recap and before we close things out through the season. But once again, just appreciate anybody that stuck around. And if you're listening now, a lot of credit to you because not sure, how many we've had throughout the season, but we definitely appreciate it. And all the people from Uncle Lou's channel, we know you've been hanging around with us and appreciate, tuning in for some picks. But yeah, we will be back at some point next week and or after the playoff first round. And we'll also continue to put out picks every, before some of these big bowl games that we like. And also too, getting into college basketball season. I know you've been putting out those daily picks. So we've been doing that, keeping up with that. And obviously our NFL picks to close out the season. And before you know, we'll be in the playoffs there. So we are not going anywhere here at PB Betting. We'll be back. And once again, appreciate everybody for their continued support.